今次我哋嚟到倫敦嘅一個非常之特別嘅畫展，咁啊主題咧就係呢個啦 ，Banned by Beijing。咁其實就係由3個畫家聯合嘅一個畫展嚟嘅，包括就係去到澳洲嘅巴丟草啦，而家喺英國嘅淋漓淋浪啦，以及就係去到台灣嘅 vawongsir。咁啊，我哋已經訪問咗佢哋㗎啦，睇下佢哋講乜先。
Wait, this one? 1, 2, 3.
Art is a very powerful message, you know. Actually, artists have a tremendous power on influence society from different perspectives. And definitely for artists who focus on the human rights, then it provides us a very important platform to, you know, attach with people, to engage with people, to cultivate them, to introduce the truth. I think there's no doubt that art has showed tremendous power during the protest time in 2019 in Hong Kong. I always feel those art that emerged during the protests is comforting people, is empower people, also in the same time diminish the authority from those oppressors, the repressions. But now I know Hong Kong is experiencing this huge difficulty now, and because with the national security law, that domestic protest is almost impossible unless people are willing to pay very, very high price. But I always believed identity cannot just be wiped off so easily. Even though a lot of Hong Kongers have to leave their motherland and basically reroute themselves in foreign countries, but I always believe Hong Kong is where Hong Kongers being. Hong Kong is where Hong Kongers speak Cantonese, making art about Hong Kong culture. And these are living things. And we as people will preserve the memory of the protests, of the value of the identity. So in that case, artists among other people are definitely a very powerful group that can continue the social movement, regardless where we are or whenever the time it is. Yeah, we have to see it from a more international perspective. The fight is within Hong Kong, but also outside of Hong Kong, because this fight cannot be won by just ourselves or just Hong Kongers. It's also about engage and receive enough support from international society. So yes, there's censorship, there's risk that a lot of artists have to be silenced domestically. They can't have the freedom as they used to be or as they should have. But for those who are in exile and outside of Hong Kong, it does not mean that their voices cannot be, you know, passed back to Hong Kong. Also, more importantly, with introducing the truth, the tragedy, and this terrible situation back in Hong Kong, we become the bridge to telling the people outside of Hong Kong. And on that base, that's where we can get more support, get more empathy, and get more understanding. Well, sometimes sacrifice is worthy, and sacrifice is also necessary. I do believe artists should carry certain social responsibility, but more importantly, we must be truthful to our life experience, because our work is the extension of our life experience. As a China-born artist, as a person who's going through all the tragedies, including my family history and the people that I know in China, I feel obligated to use my voice to amplify their voices when, you know, they cannot really speak at all inside of China. So yes, there are sacrifices that my personal security will always be in danger. My family back in China will be punished for my action. However, I do not see other choices but keep going, because like I said many times before, I do not believe that you can change your exchange your freedom for security, and if you do that, you will lose both. But by acting continuingly, it's a way to also collecting support from different directions, also encourage other people to join me. It's the equation is very clear. If we have more people doing the same thing, then we all share the same burden, we all share the same risk. Then to every individual, there'll be less to carry, and there will be longer that we can march.
Does your family understand your work?
Well, this is a tricky question because I actually cutting all my connection to my family back in China at this moment because, you know, for the CCP, the usual tactic is harming your family in order to get to you or try to pressing them because they know you're still connected to them. So for me, the choice is hard, but it's also necessary, which is just become a stranger to anyone.
What do you think if the Chinese invade Taiwan?
Well, this is actually the most kind of pressing issues in my mind personally. I do see this high risk that the Chinese government will waging some kind of war against Taiwan in a relatively short period of window, which should be something that concerns all of us. Because the take of Hong Kong has proved how China is being aggressive and being hostile to democracy. And they probably will do the same thing in Taiwan, but this time with more violence, with the threat of war. And once that happens, I'm worried that it might just be the real beginning of a much bigger scale conflicts, military conflicts between Western China. We're not talking about regional war. We're talking about international conflicts between China, Taiwan, but also between China and America. And that would be a devastating situation. And I do believe that the West and the rest of the democratic countries must be facing this grave danger and act now to prevent it from happening.
So what do you think about the West response?
Obviously, the response is not enough. They are being so cruel, indifferent, and short-sighted to witnessing the falling of Hong Kong. This hurt and hope for the entire democracy in China, but in the broader region in Asia. And they did nothing when China just moving to Hong Kong and diminished the hope of it. It's a shameful act. It's really, really problematic for those policies. And if they repeat it on other issues from China, like the Uyghur genocide or this pressing Taiwan situation, then they're not just going to losing another democracy. I'm afraid it will be the beginning of losing all democracy around the world.
其實呢幅畫咧，同出邊有一幅咧係同一個系列比較似嘅，都係俾人揞住個嘴，但係仲出邊都係有個嘴生出嚟，都係要講嘢嗰個系列咧。其實嗰個咧就係當年咧李波同埋阿林榮基嗰陣時候銅鑼灣書店事件咧而畫嘅，而今次呢一個就係因為黎智英所以而畫，即係全部都係同啲出版啊、freedom of expression 有關嘅題材，咁我哋就用呢一個去表達咯。不過有少少唔同咯，即係呢個有少少好似再發光啲啊咁樣樣。
咁所以你見到嗰個咧好白嘅蘋果啦，咁其實當我哋其實話其實真係呢個係我哋冇傾嘅 idea 嚟嘅。我哋係一開始嘅時候咧就淨係想諗起一定要比以前嗰張咧係再行前一步，就係要發光。大家都知道黎智英其實佢係可以走噶嘛，佢係堅持唔走，揀留低喺度嘅。咁我覺得佢嗰種繼續要去發聲嘅嗰種勇氣係好勁嘅，所以我哋就好 pop up 諗起一定要發光嘅咁。但係我哋撩緊啲白色，你知最光係白色㗎嘛？撩開嘅時候發覺，咦咁似個蘋果嘅，咁我哋話真係索性不如直頭畫做一個蘋果。咁我哋後來差唔多畫完撩完之後，我哋就用畫刀去即係點啊抿翻啲邊，令到你所以其實你蘋果個 logo 嗰啲葉啊，我哋都會抿翻出嚟。個 highlight 位我覺得係我哋自己都覺得係神來之筆咯，叫做我哋純粹感覺啦。即係其實之前佢好多打壓都係香港嘅，而家發覺好似佢唔知個感覺好似香港已經搞掂咗咁嘅感覺。成日我哋覺得英國嘅打壓都唔少咯。最近我哋成日講啲精準封網，我哋都唔知係咪真。
我諗 YouTube 更加深感覺到啦，即係啲片未上就喺度黃標，真係好誇張咯。我覺得中共嘅手係真係伸得好遠，同埋真係好大力。但係我哋會覺得咧， 佢唔可以遮蓋呢個世界㗎。我覺得，如果我哋信咗呢樣嘢嘅時候，就一定輸咯。我覺得，所以我覺得始終都要有翻嗰種意志，有翻嗰種信念喺度，同埋亦都唔希望好似我哋淨係一面倒忙於適應譬如喺英國嘅新嘅生活，而忘記咗喺香港嗰邊嘅手足咯。所以我哋都好希望繼續可以做，或者大家都 keep 住呢團火咯。
我相信藝術就係可以由一個角度，佢唔係單單只係用語言去做一個直接嘅表達。讀者點樣去解讀我哋嘅作品，從而佢哋就自己唔同嘅取態去望翻呢個議題，讓觀眾去思考係最重要咯。如果真係再繼續有香港人好勇敢嘅話，都只可以用啲好符號性嘅嘢去講佢哋想講嘅嘢，而希望可以通過到一啲審查啦。咁但係我相信，如果符號性越重嘅話，人哋可讀性低咗嘅話呢，咁好難去傳達到作者想做嘅嘢咯。咁所以我覺得而家唯一就希望，譬如我啊，或者其他唔同嘅 artist 喺海外嘅地方，就盡可能幫而家喺香港裏面講唔到佢哋想講嘅嘢，就盡量我哋幫手講咯。咁既然我離開咗，我決定要繼續講嘅話，咁我就相信我而家留喺嗰個角度，有呢個自由去繼續俾我講我想講嘅嘢啦，而都唔後悔啦。其實今日問我又好，上年問我又好，前年問我又好，我都係其實覺得我哋所有香港人其實都係其實已經邁向緊一個末日嘅來臨，但係我相信始終有重光嘅一天咯。我哋香港人都可以翻出嚟講我哋想講嘅嘢咯。
你會唔會擔心有一日你嘅作品都會被列為一啲禁制嘅作品？
我相信呢個 moment 我都曾經俾大公文匯都點過名，咁 part of 其實都喺香港其實都係叫做禁制㗎啦。咁我既然都走到呢一步啦，我唔擔心㗎。除唔除低唔係我嘅決定啦。我覺得呢一個笑哈哈一方面唔係代表我要 cover 我自己真正嘅身份啦。我覺得呢一個 icon 係代表好多香港人啦，喺呢個嘅唔開心嘅情景下都盡量強顏歡笑咯。咁所以我覺得我係可以幫手代表部分香港人去講佢哋嘅心聲。面具下嘅我唔緊要咯。
我相信喺香港嘅香港人都會明白一啲好明確嘅一啲創作，好實際形象、具體形象，可能同政權有關啦，可能係同煽動煽惑有關咧。咁可能呢一啲咧就唔能夠作為創作題材嘅一個部分。但係我諗好多時去到一啲極權主義國家啲創作，佢哋用顏色，佢哋用光線，佢哋用圖案，或者用一啲譬喻。去到可能講自由啦，可能講到係一啲即係人點樣去掙扎去爭取自己自由啦。咁我相信其實香港人面對咁嘅環境，我哋識得執生啦，我哋識得點樣去轉彎咧。可能用一啲即係暗語嘅形式，可能好多歌曲其實大家聽就知係咩意思嘅。譬如可能係小心地滑，無論係海外嘅香港人或者喺在地香港人咧，佢哋都用自己嘅方式繼續一種有批判性嘅創作嘅。
你覺得呢樣嘢會慢慢越嚟越地下咧？
當然，如果你話可能呢一類作品呢，可能有啲朋友嚟倫敦旅行，佢去咗之後都可能靜靜雞影咗，跟住私底下同呢啲朋友去分享。我諗好難話放喺社交媒體啦，或者好難真係好公開俾一啲唔識嘅人睇。但係唔係因為咁樣係呢一啲咁嘅作品或者呢啲咁嘅諗法呢係被壓制，因為實際上喺一啲動盪嘅時代呢，越壓迫越暴力咧，其實反而衍生出更加多經典或者一啲具時代性嘅一啲創作。咁呢個亦都可能係香港喺呢個大時代裏邊賦予嘅一個任務啦。
你永遠唔知道政權諗緊啲乜嘢，咁你踩中佢條線嘅話咧，其實基本上就已經知道係冇人行啦。佢可以做好多嘢去令到你嘅生活好難受。即係而家係即係當然個空氣係會自由啲啦咁樣，但係我哋好多時做嘢都真係要好小心。其實大家都知道國家機器佢揾人嚟對付你嘅話呢，佢係不惜一切代價嘅。 你話驚唔驚咧？其實仍然係好驚嘅。但係我認為，如果我哋認為係正義嘅嘢，我哋認為係正直嘅嘢，幫到人嘅，我哋一定要做。如果我哋唔做嘅話呢，我哋係對唔住自己，亦都對唔住喺香港而家好多係坐啱嘅手足。
你哋覺得會唔會有啲咩係喺呢度嘅香港人可以做啦？令到英國政府係可以聽到我哋呢一班雖然唔係話好多人啦，但係都有10幾萬人嘅聲音。
我係非常之反對嘅就係 Refugee Ban Bill 啦。英國政府佢哋嗰個立場本身係所謂就係對付啲經濟難民啦。但係其實咧，佢哋係冇諗過呢個 Refugee Ban Bill 對香港手足如果想過嚟嘅話，影響係好大嘅。香港人一定要關注，我哋有聯署嘅話就大家要簽一簽嘅。咁，
但係其實香港人有時佢哋唔太理解Refugee Ban Bill 呢樣嘢係佢哋覺得我 BNO 過嚟嘅喎，香港人可以 BNO 過嚟嘅喎，但係佢哋忘記咗一班可能未必喺香港出世，但係佢哋都對香港非常之大去努力嘅一班小朋友。而嗰一班人其實佢哋好需要呢一個 refugee 呢一個制度啦。而對於 local 嘅人嚟講，佢哋都係誤解咗 BNO 係俾所有嘅香港人嘅，所以呢一個可能又係要大家去同唔同嘅身邊 local 嘅人去解釋呢啲嘢咯。當越多嘅當地啊 local 佢哋自己知道呢樣嘢嘅時候，個幫助可能會更加大。
嚟到英國，我哋唔係話要照單全收英國所有嘅嘢，而係英國有啲乜嘢唔好嘅話，我哋一定要出聲。咁而喺孔子學院呢件事件上面咧，我聽到嗰日啊，辛偉誠咁講之後，我直頭係震怒啊！我想講係，要知道呢件事對於英國嘅社會佢嘅影響可能唔係好大，但係對於一班嚟到喺香港嚟到英國可能會人身安全受到威脅嘅人呢，個影響係好大嘅。
如果你係一個關注呢一個地方，你係希望喺呢個地方落地生根嘅時候，你會講其實佢可以改善啲乜嘢。而家唔係話盲目去鬧，而係如果係咁樣做會好啲嘅話，其實我唔覺得有咩問題。
香港創作藝術嘅空間越嚟越少啦，咁所以大家可能要去到海外地方，喺香港以外地方呢，先至能夠欣賞到啲自由嘅創作。咁藝術家就話啦，香港紅線只會越嚟越多嘅啫。咁所以當佢哋人在海外嘅話呢，都會繼續為香港發聲。